Hi everyone, welcome back. How are y'all doing? I'm doing pretty good. I got back a few weeks ago from a big trip to Kyrgyzstan up in Central Asia. Also did part of Kazakhstan during the trip, and I'm wearing my souvenir Kyrgyz hat. While it's, common souvenir to buy these hats, actually a lot of the locals, mostly of the older generation, would walk around wearing these hats. It was still a pretty standard thing they did, so it was nice to pick one up. I always try to get a souvenir baseball cap where I go, but of course here we just went with the Kyrgyz hat. It was very interesting to go to the country. I didn't know much about Kyrgyzstan. I always just refer to it as that country that didn't seem to have a lot of vowels in it and random letters like K's and Z's. I'm just kidding. It was nice to go visit. What I didn't realize was just how mountainous it was going to be. Kyrgyzstan is in what is called the Tian Shan Mountains, which is a bit north of the Himalayas, and these mountains are massive. Some of the highest peaks in this mountain range go above 7,000 meters. It's just crazy. So of course, there were plenty of times where we were at high elevation as part of this tour. Now we had a guide, we were all in cars. A lot of the roads were dirt. Some places there wasn't a lot of development. Like, you were in the wilderness. It could be kilometers and kilometers before you get to any kind of town or village, depending on where you were in the country. So we started the trip in the capital, Bishkek. Unfortunately, we were only there that evening and we left early the next morning, so we didn't have any time to explore the city. From what I saw, there was a lot of Soviet-era kind of squares and buildings in the center of the city, a legacy of those Soviet days. But other than that, unfortunately, we didn't see much because we just went straight to the hotel, dinner, bed, get up, and we were out. So from Bishkek, we started the journey to our next destination, which was a lake called Songkul. Now, this involved us going up, and then up, and up some more. But wow, was the landscape amazing. Here is a short video of where we had lunch. Amazing, right? Like, stunning. And those horses were wild. Those were not just, someone's horses, as far as I could tell. They were just wild horses that are freely roaming the Central Asian plains. And so from there, we went up, even more, up a mountain on this huge up the mountain on this huge switchback dirt road until we got to the plateau of Songkul, where the lake was, and we stayed at a resort. Well, they call it a resort, but it's a set of yurts with, staff and a yurt dining tent and things like that. So when you see the pictures, you're kind of like, okay, it's a plains, there's a lake, there's beautiful mountains in the background. We are at 3,000 meters elevation now. This entire plain with a lake and everything is at 3,000 meters. And I'll post some examples of other mountains that you're probably familiar with and their heights. We're generally above that. In fact, if you recall last year when I went to Munich and Salzburg and so forth, I did a day trip up the highest mountain in Germany. It's in the German Alps. It's called Zugspitze. That was at about 2,970 meters. So 2,970 meters. This plateau with the lake was higher than that. That was just wild to me that we just okay, we're just gonna stay overnight now at 3,000 meter elevation. One of the issues with being at that elevation is altitude sickness. Bishkek, the capital, is at 700 meters, and we ended the day at 3,000 meters, and we had to stay overnight there. Now, the air was really thin. Like, even just the walk to the lake, a few hundred meters, flat ground, it was a bit tiring. Like you could really feel the lack of oxygen in the air, and just doing straightforward things was a lot more tiring. It was also very cold, and unfortunately some of the guys weren't really prepared for the change in temperature. Roughly speaking, every 1,000 meters you go up, the temperature will get colder by about 6 to 7 degrees. So while it was in the high 20s in Bishkek, once you got up to Sangkul, it was like, 10, 12 degrees. In the middle of the night, it went down to probably about 6. And I don't think some of the guys were quite ready for it to have shifted that much. I had tons of jackets. I was fine. I know how to dress for cold. So we were staying in these yurts. These yurts were heated with stoves, so heat wasn't an issue. And then just, enjoyed our time up there. There was horseback riding. You go down, just go see the lake. You just kind of hung out in this beautiful, near pristine wilderness. There was occasional wandering livestock, whether it be cattle or horses or sheep, just kind of roaming around. It was really nice to go up there. So altitude sickness was a risk, and unfortunately, a number of the people on our trip did get altitude sickness to some degree. There was a couple of people who started having troubles breathing, and for a few others, there were issues with headaches, and even worse, insomnia, which is something, you wouldn't even know you'd have been affected by altitude sickness until you tried to go to sleep. And these are all classic signs of mild altitude sickness. We did have some medication with us to help with the symptoms that helped a lot of the people. But by and large, it is a danger when you go above 2,500 meters rapidly. Normally, you should try to acclimatize going up, staying somewhere a couple of days, going up, staying a couple of days. I think about Machu Picchu in Peru, where a lot of people say, you should go to the city of Cusco, you should stay there a couple of days to acclimatize a bit to the altitude before you go up to Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu's not even at 3,000 meters. So yeah, that was pretty wild. Then after Sangkul, we went back down the mountain to an area around a much bigger lake called Isyakul, I think its name is. And that was more at around 1,600 meters, so everyone was fine there. And from there, we were doing trips around the lake and trips up to the mountains. It would be pretty good to have an SUV and to not drive around on your own. Car breakdowns can happen. One of our cars would have an issue with a tire, then later another one would have an issue with something. So it was great that we were in a convoy to help get all this stuff repaired, and no one was just kind of stranded out in the middle of the wilderness. As for the rest of the trip, going along Isyakul, the landscape would change dramatically, sometimes over the course of a day, and a lot of it really reminded me of British Columbia, where you would have lush forested mountains with one stage, very dry, deserty-like conditions similar to the Okanagan Valley, just further along, or you'd start to get up to real high-altitude alpine kinds of climates, and this could all be in a day, just driving around up and down the mountains. Probably the highest we reached was we did one day trip where we went up the mountain range, and we got so high up. It was crazy. It is easily the highest I have ever been outside of a plane. And here's a brief video. Okay, so this is the highest part of the pass, I think. I think we're at slightly above 4,000 meters, maybe like 4,030 or something. Cold. I mean, down at the lake, it was more like 25 degrees. Now it's more like 10. And beautiful mountains. We're still not at the top. I don't think we're going up any further though, but very beautiful landscape. I know, crazy, right? 4,000 meters above sea level. Wow, yeah. That is higher than a lot of mountains in the Alps. That is higher than numerous mountains in North America. And yet, you know, we just drove up a mining road to get up there, and we were fairly close to the border of China. If you had continued along the road, I think you would have reached China in about another 50 kilometers. Oh yeah, it was just wild. What I'm going to do now is I'll just show pictures of the trip while I'm talking, because this was really all about the landscape and the wilderness. And the pictures you see, they're just gorgeous, of these streams and mountains and forests and things like that. Another nice thing, I was traveling with all my Arab friends, and the Kyrgyz people are Muslim, which was very helpful for my friends. No concerns about the food. All the food was halal. You didn't have to worry about, you know, eating pork or anything like that. Alcohol was not very common. You can only find it maybe in some select stores, and they all appreciated that. One of the dishes that is common in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan is horse meat, which is something that was served to us with reasonable frequency. Not so sure how much many of my friends were big on horse meat. It is not a meat that they eat in Arabia, but yeah, I mean, I tried it. I had it once before in Kazakhstan. It's a meat. You know, it's nothing particularly exciting. It's typically boiled, I don't know, served as, you know, cold cuts or whatever. It was fine. Not great. Another thing that we saw was eagle hunting. Our guides had arranged a demonstration of eagle hunting from a hunter, and I got to hold the eagle. These eagles are huge. They are massive. I can believe how big these things were. And all my Arab friends really liked it because in the Gulf, they do commonly use falconry for hunting, and falconry is a very common thing throughout Saudi Arabia and Qatar and so forth. And this is like falconry, only on a massive scale. And these eagles are used primarily for hunting rabbits, I believe, and other, you know, small mammals in the mountains. And the guy even demonstrated by having his son climb a nearby hill, and he got very far away. And then the hunter had a pelt with him that he suddenly started, a pelt on a rope that he suddenly started running with. And the eagle spotted it instantly and flew down and landed on the pelt. At which point then he grabbed it and started feeding it meat. Actually, I should just mention all the eagles are female, which apparently female eagles are slightly bigger than the males. So Kyrgyz people will always use female eagles for hunting. They will take the birds from the nest when they are, I think, just a couple of months old, and from there train them. It takes a lot of work to train an eagle to be a proper hunting eagle. And when they get a bit older, they will even retire the eagle and just let it, you know, sit at their home, I guess, for the rest of its days. Another thing that we did was try fermented horse milk and camel milk. I tried this at a restaurant in Almaty in Kazakhstan, and here's a video about that.
Glenn, can you tell us what you are having here?
This one is fermented horse milk, and this one is fermented camel milk. But because it's Kazakhstan, this would be from a two-hump camel, not the camels from Arabia, the different cold weather camels.
Yeah. So, ready for it?
Okay. For it. I'm gonna go with the camel first.
All right.
Let's just see. It's fizzy. It's like someone mixed camel milk, Laban, and sparkling water or something.
So what about the horse?
So that's weird. All right. Okay. Horse doesn't look as foamy. All right. Also sour.
You feel you can
kind of fizzy.
Horse.
Not as fizzy as the camel milk. I'm having a hard time figuring out which one I like more. This one's very sour. This one's almost like milk with lemon in it. So, all in all, I'm not describing all of the various places that I went. It's not particularly important to give specific names of these things. It's just day after day for about a week, we would just get in the cars, go to the next destination, and in the meantime, see lakes or waterfalls or go up mountains, forests. We're having lunch by river. It was a real nice sort of wilderness camping experience. The tourist infrastructure is getting more developed in this country. I would say all of the accommodation exceeded my expectations. Like when we were getting to very small towns in Kyrgyzstan, and there were 20 of us, and we would be staying at guest houses and things. I really was not expecting much. I was expecting like 1 star, maybe 2 star kind of thing, kind of run down, not really prepared. But actually the places we stayed at were generally really nice, and everything exceeded my expectations. So they've now kind of developed that there's these certain paths along the lakes and things that tourists on tour will be taking. And now people have been developing nice guest houses or hotels and things for those tourists to stay at. So it's definitely coming along. It was much better than I had expected. Now they're kind of working on the road system a bit. Maybe working on some of the national parks and things to make it a little more tourist friendly. I would say in Kazakhstan, these places are a bit better developed. They have a lot more prepared for tourism. But I did like how Kyrgyzstan was starting to do things. I hope they don't overdevelop it to the point where it gets kind of Disney-like. Like, it's really the pristine wilderness that is the big sell. So by keeping the roads maybe a bit rugged, keeping the tourist hotels and infrastructure maybe limited to the towns, and thus not spoiling the wilderness, I think would probably be best, because it was a fantastic experience. And yeah, I mean, if you're in the area, of course, most of you are watching this from Canada, so I highly doubt you're going to be in the area. But yeah, don't knock on Kyrgyzstan. It was a really nice trip. And you can book tours to visit both Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. They're not that expensive. The scenery is beautiful. You do need to be prepared for high altitudes. You probably should bring all sorts of medicines with you just in case. You may be in areas where the nearest pharmacy could be very far away. So, and allergy medication. That was another winner. I'm glad I brought that, because you don't know whether you're going to be allergic to anything out there. Mosquito repellent. Some areas where there was still water, you could sometimes get a lot of mosquitoes. It was uncommon. There was no mosquitoes at high altitudes, but there were mosquitoes in some places. And then just prepare to have a lovely time enjoying all the scenery. Wow, this video is getting long, so I'll cut it there. Kazakhstan, well, southern Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, thumbs up. Loved it. Loved the hat. And I will see you all later.